Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Thursday. John Lundbro to Brazil here on the game. You probably have heard this by now. And I think a lot of this came up when in Boston there was a nasty accident.
It was the bat of Brett Lawrie, the broken bat of Brett Lawrie.
A's and Red Sox. Woman
helicoptering.
Got hit with the end of a bat. And now an A's season ticket holder has filed a federal lawsuit against Major League Baseball demanding that ballparks vastly extend their safety netting from pole to pole. Her name is Gail Payne. She's been attending A's games since 1968 and says that her seats in Section 211 along the first base line put her and her family at unnecessary risk. And her lawyer, good enough to join us. He's Bob Hilliard. He's representing Gail Payne. It's Hilliard, Munoz, and Gonzalez, the law firm. And Bob joins us now. Hi, Bob. Thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're super.
Good. Thanks, Bob.
All right, so explain it further to me. I kind of hit the treetops there, but Gail has this lawsuit against Major League Baseball. Fill us in on the details.
Yeah, I mean, from 8 miles up, you were exactly right when you look down at the big picture. But when you zero in on it, you look at the details of the litigation. Gail is actually filing a lawsuit on behalf of herself and others who are similarly situated. That is, those season ticket holders at Major League Baseball games who are in the zone of danger, as it is known inside the baseball industry, and that is foul balls that come rocketing off of the batter's bat, sometimes at 100 miles an hour. And it's interesting that you brought up that Red Sox game in Lowry because, Gail's a diehard A's fan, and I think some of the A's are a little grouchy with her for doing this. But all you have to do is look at what happened in Fenway Park, and then you look at what Lowry said. He said, look, there's no time to react sometimes, and the nets in Boston don't extend far enough. So this is an idea whose time is ripe, and the players have been pushing the owners to extend the nets now for 2 separate collective bargaining sessions, because the players are the ones that actually see the results of fans getting hit. I was watching a YouTube video of y'all's third baseman, Nick Punto.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he had a foul ball that stopped the game because they had to take the fan out for medical attention, and you could see on his face the angst and the worry of what the ball had done that came off of his bat. But during the break, while they were treating this fan, the commentators started to discuss this issue. And they talked about the fact that, I thought it was compelling that Japan, who loves its baseball as much as we do, have the protective nettings all the way down both baselines. And have decided just as a baseball industry to protect the fans.
Bob, so here's my question, and just to double check the fact, Gail is a season ticket holder in 211, is that correct?
Yes.
I guess the hard part for me to put together, and for the record, I do agree that maybe more protective measures are needed, especially if you've sat up close at a baseball game, whether it's anywhere down the lines from home plate to first base. That 90 feet could be a dangerous spot. Maybe if you're in the first several rows, but how is she similarly situated in Section 211 to somebody that's maybe in the first several rows? And I don't even mean at the Coliseum where there's so much foul ground. I'm talking about maybe somebody who is at AT&T Park or Fenway Park where the seats are much closer, much more on top of the action.
No, that's a fair point. But when you read the lawsuit and when you look at the just all of the hundreds of video clips of fans getting hit by foul balls, they are often in a section that is as far away as Gail's. And as a fact, the netting that would protect the front row folks would protect the second tier fans. But as the lawsuit points out, and it spends a lot of time talking about the speed of the ball coming off the bat, there's not a reduction of speed that much. If it's one of those lightning foul balls that we see sometimes just heading towards the fans and kind of curving in above the first section, where everybody just holds their collective breaths and hopes whoever is in the area doesn't get hit, there's not that much more reaction time or reduction of speed. So I acknowledge and I agree that she's not on the front row. But the danger to her and to others like her, maybe people choose that area because they have kids or they have an elderly parent that they want to take to the ball game.
Right.
They are no safer than those in the front row, given the amount of time they have to react, assuming they're even watching that particular pitch, which what I learned when I was preparing to and research the lawsuit is stadiums make it, they go through a lot of effort to get the fans to interact inside the ballpark, unrelated to pitches and hits. They have Wi-Fi. They encourage you to text answers to contests on the big screen. It's an experience for the family, unrelated sometimes to the score, which is good. But the consequence is, of course, you encourage and promote distraction. Some pitches, it's not going to matter if you're a world-class athlete sitting there, you're not going to blink before the ball hits you. But for the most part, you just got, families. You got kids. You got people who just wanted an evening at the ballpark. And, in filing this lawsuit, the complaint that I've heard the most is it will limit some of the fans' experience. And, and I just disagree with that. And I read the other day that one of the agents for most of the players in baseball who sits behind the nets, took the same position that I take, and that is, it's more of a tradition than it is an actual visual difference in watching the game as a fact.
And Bob, I think the point you make there about the players not wanting to be held responsible, it's not their fault if a bat breaks. If Brett Lawrie's bat breaks, he had nothing to do with that barrel helicoptering off and hitting that poor woman at Fenway Park. So I completely understand the fact that he doesn't want to be tied to that. He doesn't want to have that related to him and life experiences or the responsibility. But and I think what you're suggesting here and what the lawsuit is suggesting is netting high enough and long enough. We're talking about, foul lines, we're 320, 30 feet down the line times 2, plus all the area behind the plate. We're talking about 700 to 800 feet of netting. And from what you're describing, netting that would even protect fans in the second and third decks of stadiums where they have that. I mean, that seems like a lot to me. And I was thinking maybe netting for the first, 5 rows or something high enough so that if you're that close, you're that protected. But if you protect everybody, you really think somebody in the third deck down a right field line needs that type of protection?
Well, again, you're right. The risk diminishes given distance and time, of course. But the wrong ball going at the right speed will still put folks wherever they are in danger. If you look at the netting behind home plate, look at how high it is and how wide it is, and then you ask yourself, why do they have it?
Well, because that's where the most foul balls or loose bats are prone to go. They've specifically, baseball has been played for more than a century, and to the point where we know where a high percentage of baseballs and bats might go. So that's the area that we protect. But if we're placing netting everywhere, even in the places where a baseball or a bat might go 0.0001% of the time, we kind of take that risk due to the reward of every other fan going to the game.
Yes and no. So that fact is actually false. And I thought the same thing before I started looking into it. But there is no standard for having any net behind the home plate. Major League Baseball doesn't compel it. The individual stadiums can reduce it like Boston did and or expand it as they see fit. The average, believe it or not, the average number of foul balls that make it into the stands every game is between 35 and 40, which is more foul balls make it into the area where the fans are and then batters hit with pitches. So again, you're right. There has to be some sort of reasonable decision and reasonable way to address this. Part of the lawsuit says to Major League Baseball, spend money on studies. Determine how to best protect the highest percentage of fans while still giving the people what they want. So this isn't a just carte blanche, put up a big green wall type netting, and that's that. We ask for in the lawsuit that Major League Baseball now focus on this. They pay for some studies and they make a determination as to where the most vulnerable folks are. And we cite a lot of injuries that occurred, but also, we cite, unfortunately, those folks who have not survived being hit by a baseball. One manager inside the dugout got hit by a line drive and didn't survive. And you might recall here in Texas, one of our minor league teams in Fresno, the first base coach was hit with a line drive. And after that, they decided that the coaches have to wear helmets. Now, a netting would have protected him, but it just points out that at that distance, a baseball can be lethal, even to a professional athlete coach, much less an 8-year-old in the front row. We're asking for two things, a conversation and a study about a way to be realistic in regards to true safety issues when baseballs go into the stands at 100 miles an hour, and that netting be extended. That's it. That's all the lawsuit's about. It's not about awarding Gail Payne any money. It's not about, benefiting her financially. It's simply about making sure that there is a way that when people go to the ballpark, they can leave and not spend, months in the hospital. What surprised me is the story after story after story that I learned about in researching the lawsuit on folks who were injured, and they were life-changing injuries.
Yeah,
they were injuries that there's a doctor here in Corpus Christi who moved his granddaughter out of the way just before the ball hit him in the eye, and he never practiced one day after that 4 years ago. And he talks about the consequence to him personally. So again, it's a benefit-risk analysis, and I agree with you in regards to how far do you need to go and how high up do the nets need to be, but it's got to be more than it is now, guys.
Yeah. No, I think we can agree on that, Bob. I just think most people's response initially is, when they hear, and probably part of it is blown out of proportion when it's hearsay. They're going to net the whole field. They're going to net everything. I think fans freak out about that. They don't want their experience to change.
So you're saying a foul pole to foul pole, how high? Is that drawn up in the lawsuit?
The height is not, and again, we'll leave that to the engineers and the professionals in regards to that, because there's always you will lose some ability to catch the line drive foul balls, and you'll still have the looping, lazy, sky high foul balls coming your way.
All right, that's good enough.
Well, at least I agree with the study. I agree with the fact that we should move forward at the very least in that direction. We need to know more about it.
Bob, thanks for the time. Thanks for the insight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You got it. There you go. Bob Hilliard. He's representing Gail Payne, the Oakland A's fan who's filing the lawsuit against Major League Baseball. He said they wanted two things. He wanted a study, and then they wanted the netting.